And welcome to another episode of Reality Talks. My name is Russ, and I am welcomed here by Pete and Francis. And we are talking about this week's reveal episode, where we're talking about the master bedroom and walk-in robes. And wow, there was some interesting things. And to be honest, the thing that I was most interested in was not the rooms, but was the people dynamic. So I'm going to hand it over to Pete and Francis to talk a little bit about the technical elements of the rooms. And then I want to talk about the people element of the show. So if you're a guest here tonight and you're watching us live on one of the many social media platforms that we're broadcasting to, feel free to comment during the show, ask us questions, put anything to us, and we're happy to feature you and respond. And if you are welcome, if you're here from anywhere in Australia, please let us know, or anywhere in the world, really. We'll be delighted to know where you're calling in from. So over to you, Pete and Francis, as we talk about what happened this evening on the reveal episode of The Block.
I'll let you go, Francis.
Should we start with house by house like we normally do? Or do we want to do a summary? Let's just start.
Well, I think just quickly as a summary, I'd be actually interested in your thoughts over the whole thing.
I felt that this week was a bit of a schmozzle, for want of a better word from the dictionary, but that's really how I felt. There was such a mix mash of things going on, and yes, the dynamic is really coming out now, and I know off the scenes, because I've been following a lot of things about what's been going on with the relationships between the contestants, and a lot of that gets commented on during the week on social media. So it's been really interesting to see how people are feeling about what's going on, but also just with Marty, I didn't feel he was great this week. I thought he came across as he was really quite, except for when he commented about Steph and Gyan's space. I don't know. I think he felt to me like he was out of touch in some ways. There was a particular comment he made, and I thought, you've just lost me as an estate agent now with the comment that he made about this is what you'd find in a $20 million home. Well, I don't know how many $5 million homes he's been in Brighton, but you'd get a walk-in robe like that in a $5 or $6 million home in Brighton. So I thought he was so off the mark with that comment.
Yeah, I think that comment goes into the hyperbole basket, or as some people say, hyperbole, if you don't know what hyperbole is. I thought that was
No, I don't. So I'm glad you told me.
So I think the key thing with Marty this week, it's like football parlance. He was rested for a week. So that rhythm episode to episode, and I think he got a fair bit of criticism from some of the contestants as being too hard. I actually liked his forthrightness week to week because his interest is in selling the homes and selling them for literally every last penny you can get for them, and that's the competition. It was interesting last week, and we did cover this in last week's episode, where the three judges, the interior designers, were back together again, and it was like an explosion in an agreeable factory. Everyone was agreeing with everyone with just little bits on the side, and so that part, the hard-nosed, what a campaign to run, we've got a race to win, that was gone from it. And so I just felt that he was trying to be probably a little bit more relatable. He was wearing something he normally doesn't wear. He was wearing a cap and an overcoat, and that's not his style. It was wrong for going on sale. That was actually the first thing I noticed about him. I thought, what's he wearing? It's not him. And so it was interesting that you picked up on that straight away, Francis. I don't know whether Russ had any thoughts on that. Audio.
We can't hear you, Russ.
No, I love a mute. When you throw to me, Pete, and I'm trying to sort something else out or managing in the background, it always throws me. No, I did pick up on the comment that you'd find this in a $20 million house, and I thought, Actually, no. I've seen these in apartments in the city.
Exactly.
But yes, but not to take away from the room. So I think what we should do is go back to house number 1 and let's dig into that.
Yeah, okay.
I thought house number 1 was the underwhelmer of the week,
And that's why it got 5th. And I love the arch, though. I thought the arch was beautiful. But then it's lit up with this LED that didn't even go the whole way of the curve. And I thought, I don't want to lie under this full-on LED. And they had no bedside lamp. So it was a really big shame because I thought the idea with the arch as the bedhead was really clever. Palmer's comment about it being even though he loves texture, about it being a bit coarse. If you want to sit up in bed and then your hair gets caught on the texture of that, I think is really valid. It would have been nicer if it was a little bit luxer in its finish, but I thought the idea was great. They just didn't finish it correctly. And the LED on that, from a functionality perspective, would drive anyone insane.
To me, it looked like a sunbed.
With the LED? With the LED?
I thought, this would actually really work if we were holidaying in Lost Wages. And so it had that very Las Vegas sort of glitzy. You could see the light. And I thought, oh, is it the camera angle? But you could actually see the light itself sitting just below. I actually wondered why they didn't create a recess for it to sit up. And the colour it needed to be much more muted. But
it was,
when they did a wide shot, I go, why is it so bright? And there was a wide shot, there's no side lamps. I go, that's why they're trying to.
Yeah, that's right. So there was nothing to soften the space. And then to boot, they had 2 downlights above the bed head as well, actually above the pillows, which was terrible. But it was a really poor use of space as well. So not only was that not finished off properly, but having that little nook with 2 chairs facing nothing, you're never going to utilise that space. No one ever is going to sit there and have a conversation. You're going to be downstairs in the kitchen. You'll be in a kid's room. You're not going to be sitting there thinking you're going to sit there and have a glass of wine together. It was just so dysfunctional. Such a waste of space.
And interestingly enough, even if you did sit there, where the window came down to was actually above the eye line.
Yes.
So I'm looking at that going, why you do that? And then the curtains they had there, it didn't allow to see through. It was just confusing for me.
But what are you going to look at? It's not exactly a beach view there. It was just totally you're going to be looking at someone else's roof or into someone else's space. It just so didn't work, that little nook. Mind you, their faces when they were getting the feedback, I mean, I really felt for them, and they had a tough week not seeing their kids and stuff for so long, but it got last for a reason.
I think there's a term that I like to use. It's called design fatigue. And so it's not that they don't have good ideas. What they're doing is they're conceptualizing probably what are outstanding ideas, but it's too compartmentalized. I've got this good idea for this. I've got this good idea for this. And it's so much harder to actually blend it all together. And that's another term that you often hear me use when I'm on jobs. I talk about blending, bringing one thing to another. You walk from one area, it makes sense when you go into another one. And so I didn't feel that they actually had that. I suspect, Francis, that this room's going to have a little bit of TLC before it comes onto market.
Although Kyle said no way. Leslie said we probably need to do something, and then Kyle said no, we're not changing a thing. So they'll have a debate about that and work out, but I think it'll need something.
Yeah, I think he had his dander up. Yeah, he had his dander up and he's exhausted.
Yeah.
Old light of day, he's still in a competition and he's a competitive fellow.
Yeah, he'll come round. So, Leah and Ash. Oh, the wardrobe. The wardrobe. Okay, far too narrow. Too narrow. And I think Marty picked that up. He actually put as soon as even my daughter said, my 12-year-old, she goes, it's too small for 2 people. I went, you got it. It's far too narrow. So just not functional. You need two people to be able to move in there easily. You know, yeah. So that's why they got laughs. It really wasn't functionality-wise. It wasn't finished off properly. There just wasn't enough thinking there in the execution.
I think they were well and truly fatigued. So house to do.
House to. Oh, I'm really struggling with these guys. I think there was a comment during the week, and I think it may have come from Steph. I don't know because I'm not following it as tightly. But I think it came from Steph, and she said that number 2's lounge room is for an Airbnb, perfect for an Airbnb when you want to be in something really different to what you live in. I think their whole house is this. And this space for me was the same. And again, and I say this every single week about them, so masculine. You know, even though they had a bench seat and the curves to try and make it feel more cozy, that blue that they used looked like it was a commercial blue you'd find in a doctor's surgery. And I know the judges loved it. I couldn't stand the scallop ceiling. I mean, you know, Russ, I'm going to be, it was just hideous. But what did it talk to about anything else in their home? They haven't used any of that sort of treatment anywhere else. And I thought they just wanted to be clever. And I think they just try and do stuff to try and be contentious or something. I don't know, but I just thought it was so wrong. And the wardrobe, just disaster is the only word that I can think of. It was just awful colorway. Their whole house is polarizing. And I really don't think that they are thinking about their target audience at all. And I said it last week, this house is not in Fitzroy. They are not thinking about their market.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my over-encompassing view, Russ. So this is Hampton East. It's conservative. It's vanilla. It is not Fitzroy. It's not edgy. So I thought the summary, the comment about it's an Airbnb, you want to stay in something that's different to what you live in, was absolutely perfect. And I went, yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
So
what are your thoughts, Peter?
The ceilings to me reminded me of catacombs. And so, it's like an ancient Rome. And so we've got the Venetian plaster happening. I probably sit between two sides. I marvelled at the craftsmanship.
Yes, but it's not going to sell it though, Peter.
No,
but it's not going to sell it.
That's my engineering brain. So I'm looking at this going, these plasterers out of this are going to get some work because their workmanship, their attention to detail is next level. The hand finishing all the way through. So now they're asked by the client to create something. And during the week, they actually
hang on. Right, you're saying all this lovely stuff, right? We're text messaging in the middle of this between ourselves, and what did you say? Cobwebs, cobwebs, cobwebs.
Yes, cobwebs.
This is a cobweb ceiling.
Yes, cobweb collector.
So you might like the engineering, mate, but you didn't like it, did you?
No,
I thought it was poo.
Yeah, I think so. Cobweb collectors, I see it in many spaces that architecturally are quite amazing, but as soon as I walk in, I know maintaining the place is going to be terrible. So if you actually have a look at light shadows, there's no way, unless you run lights all the way down each side, are you going to see anything. And then the only way to properly get cobwebs out, which they will collect, you've got to use an ostrich feather duster because everything else it just sticks to.
Well, hang on. We're in Australia, mate. We don't do ostriches in Australia. We do emus, mate.
Yeah, and it's a family home. These people don't have time to get out their ostrich feathers.
We're not going to kill an Australian coat of arms animal or bird just to clean a scallop ceiling, mate. And let's go to Be Right Agent, who said the scallop ceiling was polarizing. And I'm sorry to say, I'd pull it down tomorrow. I agree. I think it was poo.
But I think people will walk out. They're looking at that. They either will not even go to the open Although this is their main bedroom, you're going to look up at that every night going, oh, my goodness me, am I looking at this thing? Or they'll just walk out and go, this is just too hard. That's not a quick fix. It's too hard. And I think Leah just tries to get a bit clever. I think she's a bit too big for her boots. That's my honest view. She thinks she's much better at this than she really is.
Can I say, when she was standing in the set doing the scores, she did have beautiful boots on. She was dressed beautifully.
She had hot pink shoes on.
I loved it. But I'm a bloke, so I loved it. I
thought she can have
good.
hot pink shoes, but she certainly, the judges, and nor did I either, like the way she pulled things together with her token 50s chair in the corner. And it was just, I mean, I don't know what she was thinking with that Doona cover. But anyway.
What did they spend on that, Pete? You're normally good at that.
38, I think it was.
38. I think it was 38, yeah.
And Kyle and Leslie spent 32. Yeah, anyway, I'm glad that they didn't get close to winning this week because they did not deserve it.
It was a clip.
You know,
I'll give you one reason why I mentioned the duster. The only way to get it out properly is with
He's back to the duster. You've got to move on from the duster, Peter.
Okay, calm down on the duster, mate.
Okay. I'm going to tell you something about maintenance in the building. Because of the edges of it, when you actually dust down, you leave little micro marks all the way down. Over time, what you're going to see is streaking all up and down those what do you call it? Concave. Well, get concave.
Scallops. Yeah, it's concave. It's scallops.
Yeah, and so it will actually mark. So then what will happen is the light will actually pick up all these striations that run up and down. It'll do your head in. So I'd actually
another reason not to do it. It's just what a.
I just should say I love the feedback from Be Right Agent every single week. We've got a comment.
Me too.
Keep it coming.
I think it's great.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I'm going to call it. I do not think. So what are we? We're halfway through. I'm going to call it. I don't think Ash and Leah are going to get anywhere near up there to win. I don't know who their buyer is.
They're not going to sell.
I don't know exactly. I don't know who they think their buyer is, but they are not in Hampton East. It is such a polarizing house. They have not thought one bit about their target audience. Ross, where have you gone?
Oh, he's just there. I think one of the key things.
Chris stretching.
He's stretching.
Venetian plaster behind your head. You got refracted light coming in. You got the wrong colour. So the last thing you want is refracted light, and this was the problem with room 1. It actually looked like an old neon light, that LED.
It did.
Yeah. And so those two things, when you're trying to rest and feel relaxed, you don't need refracted light. It's the antithesis of relaxation. So that's where I think I'll leave that home. I don't think we'd like to.
I don't even think people will get to the lighting in house 2. They just will walk in and just walk out with a scallop ceiling. They won't even think about the lighting. What about Christy and Brett?
Yes. I think that they are diligent workers. The one thing I don't like, some of the mind games and all the shenanigans that go on in the site.
I want to talk about that. Why don't you talk about it now, Russ?
Because it's quite pertinent with this couple, particularly her.
Oh, you know that phrase. What is it? How do you catch a monkey or something? Like, how do you catch a bee with honey or something like that? She's the opposite of honey. She's vinegar.
Oh, she's. My daughters were watching this and they just said, "She's so nasty, Mum. I don't want her to win. Why is she so mean?" I mean, they're 12 and 13.
We talked briefly about just in our pre-chat before we went live, and I said, "Did you see what's happening for this week coming?" And I think it's mind-blowing. I think there's going to be an explosion this week. I'm really looking forward to this week. So next Sunday, I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. I think these relationships are going to explode. And when when Gian won, and she said, "I want to invite the girls with me."
Oh,
I love. Yes, I agree. We love the girls. We love the girls.
But we love it. How beautiful of Steph, though, because she's not playing these games. And I think House 4 and House 5 are the only ones not playing the games. They're the only ones being nice people.
I thought House 1's pretty good.
They're not bad. I think that, anyway. From what on the socials, I'll go on Russ. Go on, Russ.
Yeah. I think that kind of, and I talk about this every single week. I talk about two things every week. Number one is how this has been edited, and number two is safety.
Yeah.
And I called Pete out on safety during the week on socials, but I think that the way the story, the narrative is being formed, they could love each other in person. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't follow this stuff on social media as much as maybe you, Francis.
Apparently on the socials, and I just look at it, I don't make any comments. Apparently on the socials this week, Steph and Jan were on the Today Show this week, and they had no idea that Christy and Brett were saying the things that they were saying about them until after. They had no idea that they were, so
nasty pasties. Let's put it out there. They're nasty pasties.
But that's what Channel 9 want. They want this sort of stuff. They want, because they want you to see the relationships break up, or they're going to have a biffo or whatever's going. They want this, but people are getting really tired of it. They're sick of it all. They just want to see the renovation show, and we talked about that last week or the week before. People are getting really tired of it, and I think Channel 9 are going to have, even in the socials, people are saying, can you please contact Channel 9 and let them know that you're sick of this and that you want it to go back to the way it was. So it's becoming more and more, it's coming out more and more in socials.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens next time.
If you want a contrast, I did a catch-up on the block on Saturday night with Tanya. We're just looking at a few things. And then as I went out, I noticed that we've got every season of the block from 1 all the way up to where we are now. So I've gone, I want to go back to season 1, episode 1, just to see what happens. Do you know what that budget was for the whole job? $40,000.
Wow.
And you could win $100,000. And it was just like, are you crazy? They've just spent more than that on one master bedroom.
Yeah.
But really interesting. We actually heard the people speak before. People bump heads when they get tired, but it was actually quite a different show. The dynamics between the people, you get your normal frustrations as you do when you get tired, but it wasn't playing up to some, melodramatic crescendo every single week. So I think as we contemplate Christy and Brett, now the one thing I give them, I think their ability to put nose to the grind with is excellent. I think they've got an incredible work ethic. I think that they're thoughtful and contemplative about what they're doing. It doesn't always mean the results come out the way they want. So I give them full marks for that. I just find the mind games and all the shenanigans, and we can talk about what things online want, but she didn't open her mouth. And so no one can make her say what she says. That's, and whether she's getting carried away with the script or she's in the moment, I honestly think she's going to look back at that and just wish she kept her mouth shut.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Agree. Yeah.
So what do you think of the master?
I thought it was really beautiful, actually. The curve in the bed, the color palette, it was really soft, it was calm. And that is actually what she said she wanted to create. So I think from that perspective, they did a really good job meeting that goal that she'd set out to create, or that she set out to meet. I love the shelves on either side of where they had the TV. No bedside tables. Darren raised a really valid point, which I'd already noticed, which was the pendants hanging from the ceiling had no reference point because there were no bedsides. That was a really good opportunity for them to use oversized bedsides, which would have looked really, really good. And I picked it up last week with Ash and Leah's house, and the judges didn't, but they did pick it up this week, and that was the colour of the PowerPoint, the position of it, but also that it was not matching into the wall colour. They chose a really bright one. I don't know why they picked it up this week, but they didn't last week. But I don't actually understand, and again, this is a personal preference, why is the TV a feature? Now, a lot of my clients are not interested in having a TV in the bedroom, and look, I suppose you can take it out, but the way they did it was basically framed into that piece of the wall. It wasn't just you take it off the wall. I just don't really understand why they're creating a calm, beautiful retreat, and then they stick a TV in the wall. It's not my idea of a calm retreat, but it is absolutely a personal preference about whether you have a TV in the bedroom. And more of my clients certainly don't want that. So 2 of the rooms out of the 5 did it this week, and I don't get it. If you want a TV, put the PowerPoint in there and let someone choose, but don't make it the focal point of the room, in my view. It's not making it calm and relaxing.
It's interesting you bring that up. We're designing a house at the moment. It's a 5-bedroom main house. So there's the original master, which is probably about 15 and a half square metres. And then there's one which is about 22, so it's significantly larger. We have plans for a TV in the smaller one, but not for the bigger one. And the bigger one, there's a lot you can see into the backyard, so it's got quite large glass. There's greenery in the backyard. It's quite beautiful. And to actually put a TV in that place would actually break the serenity that exists in that room once we're finished. But with the other one, so the bed's going out, windows off to the left, so you're not really looking at that. And in that space and time, we can make the TV work. And typically, the reason we would do that, the idea of this home, I've talked about it before, creating a multi-generational home. I would imagine if a certain, family, like Greeks used to live parents and grandkids, that would tend to go for the grandparents. So they tend to chill a lot more. So there has to be a reason for it. Ultimately, if we have rooms that are really, really big and we do put a TV in, you can actually have artwork that goes in front of it when you switch, or mirrors, and when you switch a TV on, you can see through it. Amazing.
But you can get the Samsung art TVs, and they've got a frame around them, and it's a piece of art. So I don't know why they didn't use that. Well, they're not cheap. But yeah, I feel that it ruins the aesthetic and it ruins the feeling they're trying to create in a space, because it was so big on the wall. It wasn't even a small, here's a little TV. It was a TV that you'd have in the living room. But yeah, it's a personal preference.
And there actually is a ratio for TV sets. I was actually working with a cinema guy. We're on a place, and he took me through chapter and verse on how they actually work out screen sizes, TVs, distance. It's actually quite an art form in itself. And
yeah, you got to have the right distance for the size.
Yeah, he was. My sister just bought a 75-inch TV for her land room. From her land suite, it's about 2.5, 3 meters away. And I'm just going, that's too big. It's like sitting front row of the cinema. So I did note that their lighting this week was so much better. It was a lot more well thought out. I was really perplexed as to why you would have a GPO halfway up a wall in the wrong colour.
So the way you would have it, and we do this, is when it's planned out properly, you've got your bedside and the PowerPoint would actually be behind the bedside so that you don't see the cords.
No, that's fine.
But she didn't have that planned like that. I don't know what she was planning for, having it halfway up the wall, because she didn't have bedsides that were disguising it. So, yeah, why did she have it like that? But normally you'd have it like that if it was planned with the bedsides.
Well, with the bed sides, I had that big chunk of wood. It looked like a root from a tree that had holes drilled in it. It would have been probably about 30 plus centimetres above top of that, and that was the level of the side of the bed. So, it was probably a good, I don't know, metre and a half off the floor and out in no man's land. And I've gone, okay. So that room looked like it had a king size bed in it, which is it wasn't queen. So this thing was way beyond. And so I was thinking, why would you have it there? Because it makes no sense. It's just
you had really big, oversized bedside tables that weren't you wouldn't have them where she had them. You'd have them, I think if you had a 600 or 700 bedside, the king size bed size, it would have covered it, I think, because you couldn't see from the angle. But yeah.
They're all 700.
It was
it's huge.
So what did you think about the robe in their room?
I actually did like it. The colours didn't thrill me as much, but I liked
frosted glass.
Yeah, I tend
daggy.
to see
I thought it was daggy.
Yeah, it was probably reminded me of some place I went through in the early 2000s.
I would have said late 90s. It just felt masculine. It just felt so wrong from what they'd created, this calm, soft colour palette.
Yeah.
And then you go into this robe, which has got charcoal frosted glass with black frames. I just felt it was so disconnected.
It actually reminded me of a bottle of tobacco. Now I'm back to the aftershave thing again. But a bottle of tobacco, the glass has got that sort of dark frosted look to it. And so, look, that's probably what I would say. I've been in a lot of properties in Warrandyte, built late 90s, 2000s with really, really large en suites, really large walk-in robes. That's what that reminded me of. But I think one of the key things, again, I do like a nice piece of glass. The only thing, and here we go again with the technical stuff, there's a lot of off-gassing that happens with fibre, with bonded leather, with carpet and flooring. So what off-gassing does is it creates a haze on glass. And so there are times when I've actually spoken to clients where there's a solution we use to try and overcome that, but we're there all the time because it keeps frosting up. And so, we've actually said to clients, it's worth getting a very light tint on it so it's not as obvious. And so we just use a little bit of a dark tint and it actually hides it, yet you still see through it. And so I don't know what the thoughts were. That for me would be the practical use for it.
One of my university lecturers, Pete, was it got what's called 20th century syndrome. And that off-gassing is
VOC.
I remember him describing it as formaldehyde and other
VOCs.
VOCs. And he ended up being so sick that he couldn't continue his normal work.
It's actually called sick building syndrome. And so I actually have a building hygienist. We actually measure formaldehyde levels in places. And so it's really interesting when we've seen places designed by architects and they all come together. They look amazing day one. And in a really short period of time, because of all these different materials that go in there. And in the early days, when you've got your glue, you've got your lacquers and all those sorts of things, VOCs is a really full on. It's a real thing, along with air conditioning. So, we're trying to create 6-star homes. It's really interesting. The higher star rating we go up, more this problem increases. Because what it does is they have air movements and everything's sealed all the time. People run their air conditioning, not opening windows. And so this stuff gets contained and it's like open windows. Get some air movement.
But that's when you have a heat recovery ventilator. We're going to go totally off topic here, Russ. That's when you get a heat recovery ventilator so that you don't need to seal your house is sealed properly and it brings in the natural fresh air in, and then you don't have any of those issues. But you also need to make sure that you're choosing products that are Green Star rated that then don't have the VOCs in them. But this is a real
would like to
education.
go off on a tangent. I'd like to go off on a tangent and talk about this because, as you know, Francis, I'm an Apple fanboy, right? And during the week, they had their Apple Watch and iPhone announcement. And the first, I reckon every single product they talk about was how, as an organization, they're moving towards being carbon neutral.
Yeah.
And that there was a feature, and you could look it up on Google and YouTube to find this. But I was really moved by their focus on being more sustainable in the way as an organization, that the way they manufacture products, the way they distribute and ship products, the way they package products. And it really forced me to think about, okay, what am I doing in my business, my small business, that I can make a difference? What things, we're changing our lights over tomorrow morning in our office because we're taking advantage of a government grant. But there's not a lot of discussion in this season's episode of this season of The Block talking about energy efficiency, and they're things I'm genuinely interested in. And when you said before, Francis, let's get off the character-based discussion and let's go, I think it was you, Pete, and let's get back to not talking about characters, but let's talk about renovation. They're things I'm genuinely interested in. I think maybe Channel 9 have missed it a bit. But over to you, Francis. What are your thoughts?
I think the reason that they're not talking about it is because it doesn't suit the sponsors. Because I don't believe that any of the sponsors that I'm aware of are sensitive to their environmental concern in terms of how they're producing. So if they've got sponsors that don't want to talk about the sustainability card and the agenda because they don't have sustainability credentials in what they're producing, generally speaking, I think that's why they're not talking about it. I'm making a massive guess here because it is everywhere. It's in all the magazines, it's online, it's with all the professionals. It's constantly talked about now, much more than when I built my house 10 years ago. You couldn't get any information.
Your house is pretty amazing.
And when it was built, we were off the scale in terms of our star rating and everything else. And it still is great now. And it's still far ahead what they're building today still, but it's much better than what it was. So that's my guess as to why it's not being spoken about. I really think it's linked to that.
Let's put it out there. Hey, Channel 9, if you're watching this, why don't you give us a comment? Tell us what you think. Are you having a red hot crack at environmental and sustainability approach to renovations? We are genuinely interested. Let us know. Reach out to us in the comments. We'll feature you in next week. But at this point, frankly, I think you've missed the boat. I think you're so way off. And yes, this is a show that I get. This is a show that's about ratings, but how about ratings and the environment? Can you do both? Channel 9, it's over to you.
You know something else, if you think about the target audience, so what sort of age group do we think are going to buy these houses? Now, I'm guessing probably 40. Maybe 30s, 40s. So closer to the 30s, they are environmentally aware. They care. They are the generation.
Where is somebody in their 30s getting $3 million for a home? Because they're not going to, and we'll come back to this.
Late 30s.
They're going to want. Yeah, maybe, but
but they will want. It's just so I don't, unless but generally speaking, they are wanting homes that have got sustainability credentials. And
do they have emu or do they have ostrich feather dusters?
That
is a disgrace. Interestingly, just going back on Apple, and this is what triggered me in your mind, Pete, was that they've stopped selling products made of leather, and every product that they make is using recycled metals. So I thought that was pretty interesting too. Yeah.
Well done, Apple.
So next time, Francis and I, for those who are viewing, Francis and I, we're like this. She can't help it.
I'm a Samsung girl.
Yeah, she can't help it. We have
a great banter about it. Yeah. We have great banter about it.
Pete's got his 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what room are we up to?
We covered off the wardrobe in 3. She had her faux bag in there, so there was a bit of sustainability going there. Look, the thing that annoyed me, and whether that was deliberate or not, all they're doing is by thinking it's Steph, all they're doing is actually allowing people to see the difference between the characteristics of the two.
Yep.
And so we see with Steph someone who gets frustrated, who's real, has her crabby days, which she said, you know, I just couldn't focus on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
But she's actually speaking, no malice in what she's saying. She's just talking about what's irritating. And when something irritates her, she gets flustered. She doesn't stay in that place. And I think with Brett and Christy, I think they're a bit too smarmy. But I got to say, I loved how they learned the difference with their lighting, made big improvements. I think their ears are open, unlike House 2, their ears are shut. And so it's more really good things from them. So House 4, Steph and Gian. I could talk all night about this, but I won't.
You know, one really interesting thing about the budget. So Christy and Brett spent 42K and look at the result. And Steph and Gian spent 44K and look at the result. And the size of the space. What a good use of their money.
They, honestly, that room deserves its own postcode. It's huge. And not only that, they didn't make it feel Spartan either.
No.
They tactfully filled the space, and there was still room to move, but there was something to look at all the time. I really want to talk about their lounge and their table in that room.
I'd love to know what you think about it, about that whole concept.
Of lounging in the bedroom?
Just that, but what you wanted to talk about with regards to the lounge and the table. You said you wanted to talk about it, but then, I mean, then also in the context of the living. So fire away.
I like to use my room a fair bit. I read a lot, and more than any other place in the house. Although in my office here, right over there, I've got like a lounge, and I've got a TV over this way, and we've got sort of timber Venetians and look out. We're on the second level. We look at trees, and it's nice. But I like to use the room. For me, when I shut the doors to the room, there's calm, there's serenity, and personally I enjoy it. I've got a coffee machine in my ensuite, so I walk over my ensuite, make a coffee so they can smell it brewing. It's awesome, and I'll sit in there. And so when I looked at that room, I thought to myself, I know how I would use it. I just enjoy it for what it was. A good book and some music. I have a little bit of jazz music in the background, and it was great.
It's interesting. I don't know many people that have a lounge, that lounge nook in their master that actually use it. So it's really nice to hear that you really do enjoy using yours.
Oh, for sure. And I just think that it's there to be used. So you'll often hear me when I prepare a home, when we're working, the constant theme in my mind is how do people live with the home? Not just look at it. How do you live with it? And and it's interesting that when I'm working at doing the things that I'm doing is when you hear the comments of potential buyers come through. That is exciting. And I go, ooh, I love that. And something makes sense to them when they've seen it for the first time. It's like I've always known that, but I've never seen it. And so for me, when I saw that, I've gone, oh, that'd be great. I could use that. I'd be really happy.
Well, Be Right Agents actually just made a remark, which is, I think, spot on. Steph and Jan's master bedroom and walk-in robe will sell the house, and I agree. That is palatial. I don't necessarily agree. To your point, Russ, it is not sustainable. It is not what people really necessarily want or need if they're being sustainably minded, because it's so big. But it's beautiful, and as you said, Peter, every piece of that space was used strategically. It wasn't too sparse, it wasn't too cluttered, it was elegant, it was sophisticated, and whether you like the decor or not, it was still beautiful and it worked so well together. And the robe was amazing, although I didn't like the pendant in the robe. I thought it was a bit, I know she likes the Japanese style, but a paper lantern, it just didn't quite lift and elevate the space as what it could be if they had a more sophisticated light. I thought the light was wrong, but other than that, I couldn't fault it.
What about the island bench? Like, FCG playing surface isn't that big.
No. Look, 38 square metres for a master and a robe, I think, is really over the top. Again, for the market, but they will just love it, whoever buys it. To be right agent's point, it will sell the house. It's like, this is going to be my palatial oasis, and you know, I'm going to enjoy it. It's going to be my space, because none of the other houses have got anywhere near anything like it.
So let's think of it this way, and I'll get back to selling. So the one thing that Chris often talk about McMansions, and you know, it's like they look down their nose at people with big homes. We've got smaller blocks. Years ago, 600-700 square metre blocks or more were the norm. Now we're at 350-400. So actually building bigger homes on smaller spaces, but how we use the property is really different. So a really nicely pointed home will have a really good fresco. They have a little bit of a green area outside. We've even got battery-powered lawnmowers these days. And, you know, if the battery only lasted 10 minutes, you'd probably have everything mowed anyway. Where I grew up at mum and dad's, I'd be there a week mowing. So we've got bigger homes. We've got multi-generations living in homes. Kids are staying longer. People are enjoying their homes and entertaining in ways that never really happened, except for the barbecue outside in the garage. So if that's the case, it would make sense that really large bedrooms, really large, really wide like entryways, all of those things actually work based on the lifestyles that we live. And that room for me would stay in that house and never leave, like forever.
Yeah, and look, I think I don't necessarily agree with that completely, because I don't feel that we need to have bigger homes. We have, on average, the largest homes in the world, and I feel there's a lot of resources it takes to build these places. In Australia, we don't recycle much, we don't reuse much, and it also takes a lot of energy to keep these homes heated, cleaned, cooled. We're not very energy efficient here either. We're nowhere near what Europe is like in terms of how we are installing HRVs and having, you know, passive homes and all the rest. We're way behind the 8 ball. So I don't feel they need to be big. I feel that they need to be better designed. Now, when I looked at the floor plan and I thought, why does your master need to be so big? And I was already thinking, even though it flashed up on the screen very quickly, what else you could use that space for. And we are having multi-generational living, and I think we need to plan for it. And I know, Peter, you and I have spoken about this much earlier on in the season, but not everyone is living multi-generational. And I think we need to have the flexibility to have multi-generational, but it doesn't necessarily mean the house needs to be bigger. But that's just my view. And I don't live in a multi-generational home, but I design for the flexibility of maybe having that happen in the duration of the time that I or my clients might live in the home. So it's interesting that there's clearly different viewpoints on it. I have a really strong sustainability mindset, which may be then steering me towards a particular route. And what I've seen what has happened in Europe, what happens in Europe from living there for so long. So it's really interesting to hear the different views.
I think we won't get too far from this, but I think the biggest difference. The biggest difference between, like, I had a client who worked for a major German manufacturer and set up in Australia. And so I did his property in Mooralbark, and part of the install, all the external door and window features came from their company. Mate, it was off the charts. And he said, Peter, he goes, this can go like down a minus something in a blizzard. And I go, when was the last time you had a blizzard in Mooralbark? I go, it's never going to happen. But the quality of the frames itself, they were millimetre perfect. Thickness of the glass. I actually asked him, how much did it cost to ship out? He goes, I told my wife 20 grand. He goes, it's a bigger number than that.
100.
It was. It was. We don't manufacture anything anywhere that I know of that's as good as that. It was.
Par Hammer would be worth looking into. They actually make them here, but to German standards. It's a German Austrian owners, so but 100 grand for windows on your average house. It's not it's expensive stuff. So I think you have to have I really feel that you need to have a strong belief system with it to do it, and that's another reason I don't think Channel 9 do it. I don't feel, and again, I don't know, but I don't feel as though their target audience that are watching Channel 9 are really sustainability focused. It's a hunch. It's a hunch. So does it really matter to them? I don't think it does. I don't know what you think about that, Russ.
No, I don't think it matters. I think what matters is ratings and sustainability. It's a great discussion point.
And the money. Yeah. So we all agree Steph and Jan nailed it. Sorry, Peter.
Oh, I was going to say, I can't say that there wasn't, I love that whole feel, and I love their reactions to what the judges were saying. Shane Blaze said she's only 27.
Yes, I was going to say that too.
Yeah. And what will she be like in years to come? I think, even if they don't win the block, I think her credentials are going to just go through the roof. And it's really interesting if we think back to week 1 where she was under the pump and she came in with this, I'm going to show you how it's done. She got burnt really quickly. But one thing that I discerned about her is that she had ears. She was emotional and she was doing all that. She was finding her feet. But I think she had ears, and she wasn't just trying to listen to what was being said. She was trying to understand what was being said. And so she's very human. She has her emotions. She wears a heart on her sleeve, but she comes from a fundamentally good place. She's a good student, and I think that will hold them both in good stead.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think she's going to have a huge career ahead of her. This is going to launch her architectural practice, which she's only had for 12 months. She's just gone out on her own. What a marketing tool for her. But I think she's relatable as well. She's not playing the games that the others are playing. And just what she did right at the end, I think Eliza and Liberty have had a really rough week. We're going to invite them down to the island. I mean, who doesn't want to work with someone like that?
Absolutely. She has a humanity, which I really love. And I'm going to go on and say this. I think if the block goes on another 5, 10, 20 years, we're going to look back at Gian and Steph as the most seminal moment in block history for those who've been able to take an opportunity and really do amazing things. Because of anyone who's ever been on this, they've had builders on there and chippies and that sort of stuff. That's great. But I've actually followed other contestants who won and done really well. Immediately when the block finishes, there's a flurry. But 12 months on, they're still they start posting again coming block season and no one's paying attention to them. I think that Steph, her professional kudos will be so significant that it won't surprise me if she comes back as a judge in years to come. That's how strong I feel about her.
You heard it here first. Hey, Pete.
Yeah.
And here's me completely disagreeing with you.
Really? Why is that,
Yeah.
Russ?
I've worked with some amazing architects, and I think that, not full screen for me, just to, thank you. I've worked with some amazing architects, and I think she's good, but she's not stellar. She's not great. And I've worked with some amazing architects in my career. And I see what these guys think differently. They're the guys with the big fat red glasses and like straight away, Francis, right?
Yeah,
These guys
totally. They're out there.
And
they're out there.
I'd love to get one of my mates on here who's traveled the world as an architect.
I know who you mean.
Sorry?
I know who you mean. Because you've told me about him. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he's amazing, and I'm there are some amazing architects. I don't think she's at that realm yet, Pete. So I think
the key word,
at this point,
she's only 27.
That's what I was going to say. And she's also restricted by what the block is restricting her with. So we don't actually know what she's really capable of when she's given a brief, when she's got money, when she's not doing it herself. It would be interesting to see how she would react to the brief and respond to the brief. But I know what you're talking about, Russ, totally. She's not cutting edge creative.
Yeah. Like, go and look at what the guys at DKO do, and Coast to Kaiser. He's one of the smartest architects I've ever met in my life, and he's just different. He's just bloody good.
Yeah. I will say this, Russ. There's a massive difference between sitting in an office and you've got a team and putting stuff together and being under the pump day in, day out, making decisions when you're constantly fatigued, or a fish out of water.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference. And so when I said I think she'll be the most successful of those on the block, I'm talking about the context of what we're looking at here within the show after. If she when acting under the pump, she came in with a set of assumptions, and she said it herself. I'm not used to working like this. She said a brief can happen over months, sometimes 6 months. You got time to consider, plan, all of that. What caught her out was the speed decisions have to be made at, and then you've got to live with it. And so she is now, her feet are being held to the fire. She has learnt to grow and make good decisions without having all the answers. And so,
but I think
to their credit,
it'll launch her career as an architect like nothing else will, though, which is probably what you're talking about as well, Pete. That she's really going to go, whether she's as brilliant as the architects that you're talking about, Russ, even if she's not even a quarter as good as they are, this is going to launch her as an architect.
Oh, no doubt about that. No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. So they finished the room. There wasn't this is our segue to house number 5.
Yes.
And they struggled.
God, yes. I love these girls.
Can I tell you, for the car crash that this is, it's a car crash I actually want to watch, because it's all happening. It's awkward for them. They're under the pump. There's just, everything seems to be going wrong, and yet they keep turning up. I love their authenticity.
That's what I love.
Yeah.
But I think that's why everyone really loves them, because they're so real, and they're not talking about, this sort of went wrong. They're really telling you what really went on for them as people that week, and that what the mess ups were, but not just we messed up. They really get into the deep feelings that it gives them. I don't know, and I think that's why they're so popular. Everyone I talk to that has been watching this, the block, is just, I love them because they're so real. And I mean, I said it from week 1 how much I just had a soft spot for them from the start. yeah, their room was really the first thing that I wrote down was really underwhelming, but what I loved about what she said, I think it was Liberty that said it. She said, we're spot on about the floor plan. It'll be the floor plan that will get us to win over bits and pieces of styling. She said, I think we've got the best floor plan. And I think she's right in saying that the floor plan over bits and pieces of styling will set them apart. And she's in it for the long game. She's not in it to win. They are not in it to win it week by week. So I love that strategic thinking.
Simon Sinek, the fantastic author, communicator, talks about, the long game. And it's not just about you got to win this, you got to win that. It's essentially never giving up. And I think these girls want to give up as much as they don't want to give up. And so there's this tension that exists inside them, like we just want to go to sleep and wake up and it's all done. And then it's at the same time we need to keep going on. And it's like me going for a run. My idea of a run would be to the letterbox and back. And that's my comfort zone. But going for a run, it's just, there's this constant voice in the head, just chill. And then the other voice in the head just goes, just keep going. And I think we're seeing that week in, week out. Marty Fox actually picked up. He goes, I like what they're doing with their floor plan. He goes, all the elements are there for a really good sale. So, as he mentioned in, I think it was House 3, you can change, or House 2. Oh, no, it was House 1. You can change some of the styling, some of the other things, but you can change the room. And so what we're seeing each week in, week out, their base plan is really good. May not be as fancy as everyone else, but whoever buys it can come in and go, okay, we can put spit and polish here and make it really work for us.
I mean, they spent nearly half of what Steph and Gian, they spent 23. I mean, obviously their room wasn't as big. But I think Shana mentioned it as well, and I know Darren did. It is really valid because they're not comfortable with colour and they're not comfortable with styling. They keep now using the same colour palette in every room, and it is getting a bit tired. But again, they can change that before it goes to sell. The blue carpet was like the rug, I should say. The thing that I thought was really interesting was that builder was having a go at them about the timber top for the fireplace, right? And, you can't use that, it's construction material. And he said, if you had gone to the stonemason, you could have got, an offcut of stone, which obviously is completely valid. But there were some other retrofits that they could have done that I'm surprised the builder didn't share with them, which you're probably familiar with all these products, Peter. They could have done a stone veneer over the top. They could have done an epoxy finish over the top. They could have used a Dulux Reno paint and just gone over the top, rather than try and do that terrible stain that they did, which talked to nothing and didn't even coordinate properly with the timber underneath. So I thought there were so many quick fixes they could have used to fix that top that they knew they'd chosen incorrectly, but the builder didn't help them out with them, just said, you could have gone to the stonemason. Not very helpful.
Well, that was Dan, the
foreman. The foreman. Foreman. Sorry. The foreman.
Yes, so he threw it in. I mean, they would have picked it up earlier in the week. I'm glad you actually brought up the builder. I think I'm feeling for the builder as much. They're exasperated with the constant changes or not finishing off. I think the girls would do well in their planning at the beginning of the day. So dedicate the first hour to make sure that all the things that need to happen for the next day are set in place. I think what they're doing is that they're so overwhelmed. They're actually just running all over the place, doing little bits and pieces, and nothing's finished. And there's nothing more frustrating for a builder, anyone working on a job, where your client can't make up their mind and you're trying to take direction from them. And it is a competition. I mean, at the end of the day, a builder can make a suggestion, but what they're doing is that they're using, they think, you said we're carpenters, plastering is outside of our room. Have you ever seen a chippy plaster a wall? That's terrible.
They're not going to do a good job.
Yeah, I want a plasterer to plaster the wall. And when you see a really good plaster wall and they do their joints and that, it's epic to actually watch, like a bricklayer who's really good at doing it. It's just a bespoke trade. And so I don't know what's going on there. I just think it's just frustration all around.
I think it's a really good lesson for anyone that thinks that they can embark on a building project without any experience. I think this is a classic example of all the things that go wrong because they actually don't know, and they put their hand up right at the start and said, we have no idea what we're doing. We've got zero experience. They're coming from nothing. All the others have got something. They are literally coming from nothing. And so they can't plan because they actually don't even know the steps. They don't even know the order that things are meant to happen. They can't even paint. They don't even know you need to cut in.
So why do you think the producers chose them? To provide contrast, to provide story, narrative, to tell a story about them finding some new husbands?
Yeah, exactly, to find new husbands. So that would be entertaining. And now he's off with, who's the guy's, not off with, but he's volunteering his sons who've got girlfriends.
Farmer wants a wife next.
Yeah. I think because they are, this is going to sound really terrible, they're really attractive, they are really good at talking, and they're bringing a different flavour to the block because they don't have any experience. So why not? And I feel that in the whole stages that they would have gone through for, not the rehearsals, applying for it, they would have come across as being really real because that's just who they are. So I think it just gives a different, something else to talk about, a different flavour.
So isn't it?
Sorry, mate, go ahead.
Isn't it interesting that we think of last year? Who was that couple? And I know B-Right will know about it. That couple that were just doing everyone's head in. One that was the accountant and his wife. They didn't have much skills, but all they did was carry on and make everyone's life a misery. And these two don't have any skills, and everyone loves them for it. It's like they're willing to do something. And so
rooting for the underdog. It's classic. Absolutely. Rooting for the underdog. It's absolutely as Aussie as it can get. And because they're not up themselves and they're just laying it on the line, people like it. What are you laughing at, Ross? They're not up themselves. They're just like, we're hopeless at this.
It's a classic Australian phrase, up yourself. And, I visualise everything, so it's just funny.
Okay, so...
have you heard that term, it's important to be self-depreciating?
Yeah.
And I think that I mixed it up when I was doing a talk one day from a stage, and I mixed up self-depreciating with self-defecating. That caused more laughs than what I actually meant it to do. So
wrapping this week's up, I think we're all in agreement that Steph and Gian won on merit. They did a great job. Yeah.
29. Wow.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, 2 9.5s and a 10. Marty gave them the 10, I think it was. I think, all up, we're all in agreement that they executed the master bedroom. But what we all, I think, certainly Francis, you and I agree that sustainability is not an issue here. It's not an issue for the block, And I love how the media, they talk about global warming and climate change, blah, 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 blah. Channel 9, you're watching. What are you doing about it on these TV shows? Tell us, what are you doing? We want to see it in your social media. What actions are you taking to help sustainability in these homes that is maybe over and above? Let's talk about, like Apple did, let's talk about reusing products. Let's talk about how they've recycled materials. I want to know these things. I'm genuinely interested.
I'd hate to know how many skips are going to the tip from that show. Nothing will be recycled.
Well, like I see skips after skips after skips in city buildings where they remove and dispose of perfectly good materials all of the time. But, you know, to the credit of most
Anyway.
builders these days, they do separate products into different materials. So you'll have bins for steel, you have bins for plaster, you have bins. It's all separated on construction sites now. I really like that. But there's no reusing. Everything goes to waste.
Yeah.
So, Pete, wrapping up, what have you got on this week? And I know last week you and Francis caught up for a podcast.
This week. I organised it last week. We're recording it this week. It'll go out on Thursday next week. Yeah. Recording it this week.
Pete, what have you got on this week?
I've got some more meetings with agents. We really exciting. I met with an agent and their team on Tuesday. On my way out DA, I get a call from this lady, and one of the agents had already put me onto it. Ceased to state, looking at changing everything in the property. So I've been out on that. And so the planning and more planning. It's all exciting.
You've got a new hat this week, the Happy Renovator. What's going on with that?
One of my good friends, the Happy Renovator, should get a good book by Warren Erasmus. She actually goes through all the steps. If you're renovating for the first time, how to do it. It's a fantastic book. There's a lot of pictures in there. She runs a big business in Sydney. She's on the radio all the time. And she is, she actually, Francis, you remind me of her. She's exuberant. She's warm. And she loves people. And she loves what she does. And so I call her a friend.
B. Wright popped in and said, looking forward to the sustainability and silica dust conversation next week. Hashtag Kitchen Week.
Bring it on. I have this conversation with my clients on a daily basis about the silica and all the products that are available and what the media have hyped up about it. So I really look forward to talking about that next week.
I have a real life story that will tug at your heartstrings that will cover that exactly.
That's good.
Francis, what have you got on this week?
I've actually got a book launch tomorrow with an interior designer that I really rate in the industry, and I'm doing a formalization of our customer journey, which should be great. And we're onboarding a couple of new clients and doing lots and lots of drawings for others. So it's quite a big week this week.
And so just wrapping things up, Pete, if people want to find you, they can go to presentinghomesaustralia.com.au, and Francis, we can find you at whitepebbleininteriors.com.au. Thank you so much for your time this evening and your insights and wisdom about the master bedroom reveal and walk-in robes. Thanks for Tim, who's in master controls, switching and moving things around and turning audio on and off. Well done, Tim. So till next week, we look forward to you guys joining us again. Don't forget to hit like and follow on our thread here for Reality Talks. And if you've got any comments, let us know in the thread. And again, we also look forward to what's happening next week, which is Kitchen Week. So thanks everyone for joining us.
Bye for now.